Have you ever reached a point in life where everything you tried to hold on to slipped out of your hands? Not just a bad day, not just a small failure, but the kind of moment where you sit silently in the dark, looking at your life and asking yourself, what can I possibly do now? You tried, you prayed, you planned, you endured, you pretended to be strong for so long that even you forgot how tired you really were. But then, one day, everything you used to hold yourself together suddenly collapsed. And in that silence, you felt as if you had lost. But what if the moment you thought was the end was actually the place where another door began to open? The strange thing is, life does not always change when you are at your strongest. Sometimes, it only begins to move when you no longer have the strength to resist. When you have run out of options. When you no longer want to prove that you are okay. When you no longer try to control every outcome. When all you can do is sit there, honest with your own pain. And perhaps that is exactly why hopelessness feels so frightening. Not because it takes everything away from you, but because it strips away the mask you have worn for too long. It forces you to face the truth. There are things you cannot force. There are people you cannot keep. There are doors you cannot open with willpower. There are answers that only appear when you stop demanding that life explain itself immediately. Hopelessness is often misunderstood as an abyss. But sometimes, it is more like a sacred empty space. A place between the old and the new. A place where you do not know where you are going, but you can no longer return to the old path either. It is the feeling of being suspended between two versions of yourself. The old version is exhausted, broken, and no longer able to keep living the same way. But the new version has not yet taken shape. And because you cannot see the new thing yet, you assume nothing is happening. But the truth is, the deepest transformations usually happen in the dark. A seed does not sprout on the surface where everyone can see it. It breaks open beneath the soil, in silence, under pressure, in complete darkness. Human life is the same. There are seasons when you think you are being buried, when in reality, you are being planted. You were taught that being strong means being in control. You must know where you are going. You must have a plan. You must keep everything in your hands. You must predict the future. You must never let anyone see your weakness. But the longer you live, the more you realize that life does not operate like a plan written by human hands. Some meetings happen unexpectedly. Some losses arrive without warning. Some goodbyes come before you are ready. Some dreams you carried for years eventually require you to admit that they no longer belong to you. And when that happens, your mind calls it failure. But your soul may be calling it freedom. Because not everything you lose is truly a loss. Sometimes, what leaves you is exactly what was quietly making you smaller. Sometimes, a closed door is not a punishment, but protection from walking deeper into a path that no longer matches your soul. Sometimes, a relationship ends not because you are unworthy of love, but because you have spent too long losing yourself just to be chosen. Sometimes, a plan falls apart not because you are incapable, but because life refuses to let you build your future on the wrong foundation. And hopelessness appears at that exact point, when your ego can no longer understand what is happening. But something deeper within you knows that the old way cannot continue. People fear letting go because it feels like losing control. But in truth, many things we call control are only attachment in disguise. We cling to a person because we fear being alone. We cling to a job because we fear starting over. We cling to an image of ourselves because we fear being seen as weak. We cling to an old dream because we have invested too much time in it, even though deep down we know it no longer makes us feel alive. And when life forces us to let go, we think something important is being taken from us. But perhaps, for the first time in many years, our hands are finally being opened. Surrender is not weakness. Surrender does not mean you stop living, stop trying, or simply let everything drift away. Surrender is the moment you stop fighting reality. You stop saying, everything must happen my way. You begin to say, I do not understand everything, but I am willing to see what I have not seen before. That is a small change in language, but a huge change in the soul. Because while you insist that life must follow the path you drew, you cannot see any other path. But when you accept that your wisdom has limits, you begin to open yourself to a greater wisdom. There is a kind of tiredness that sleep cannot heal. It is the tiredness of a soul that has tried for too long to become something it is not. You can sleep for 8 hours, eat properly, and still feel empty. Because what exhausts you is not only work, responsibility, or outside pressure. Sometimes, what exhausts you is living a life that is no longer true to you. Smiling when your heart is closing. Saying, "I am fine," when something inside you is breaking. Continuing to chase goals you no longer even know why you want. Then hopelessness arrives like a great bell. It is not gentle, it is not comfortable, but it wakes you up. You may hate the moment everything falls apart. But years later, you may look back and realize that if life had not stopped you that day, you would have continued moving farther away from yourself. If that person had not left, you would have continued begging for love from a place that only gave you emptiness. If that opportunity had not disappeared, you would have continued selling your soul for an image of success that never truly nourished you. If that plan had not failed, you would have continued building a house on land that was never meant for you. The things that hurt us most are sometimes the very things that save us from a longer pain. Here is something difficult to accept: not every interruption is an accident. Some interruptions are invitations. A crisis can be an invitation to return to the truth. A rejection can be an invitation to relearn your own worth. A lonely season can be an invitation to hear the inner voice you have ignored for too long. A failure can be an invitation to grow, not by becoming harder, but by becoming more honest. Life sometimes interrupts your story not because your story is meaningless, but because you have been writing it from fear instead of aliveness. When you are hopeless, you often want answers immediately. You want to know why this happened. You want to know when the pain will end. You want to know who will come, which door will open, and what future is waiting for you. But there are stages of life that do not give you answers right away. They only give you silence. And that silence can terrify you. Because the mind always needs data. It wants to explain, analyze, and predict. But the soul does not grow through data. The soul grows through presence. Through staying with yourself, even when nothing is clear. Through breathing through one more day. Through not abandoning yourself in the very moment you feel abandoned by the whole world. Do not mistake life's silence for proof that you have been forgotten. Some things are being arranged where you cannot yet see them. A seed does not know spring is coming, but it still quietly breaks open. A child in the womb cannot see the outside world, but it is still being formed. A person walking through darkness cannot see the sunrise, but the sunrise is still moving toward the horizon. Just because you cannot see the result does not mean nothing is happening. Just because you have not heard the answer does not mean your prayer fell into emptiness. Just because you do not know the path does not mean the path does not exist. Hopelessness has a strange way of cleansing the soul. It takes away what is false. It makes empty words useless. It makes you lose interest in impressing others. When you are in enough pain, you no longer want to pretend. You no longer want to live only to be approved of. You no longer want to keep relationships just because you fear losing face. You no longer want to chase dreams that are not truly yours. And in that moment, you begin to meet your real self again. Not the polished version, not the edited version designed to be easier to love. But you, bare, tired, and real. And what is real always has the power to heal. Maybe you are in a season where everything on the outside looks like failure. You are not moving as fast as other people. You do not have a success story to tell. You do not have anything certain to hold on to. But perhaps inside you, a rebirth is happening that no one else can see. You are learning not to betray yourself anymore. You are learning not to beg for love from cold places. You are learning not to define your worth by other people's approval. You are learning how to stand alone without seeing loneliness as a sentence. You are learning to believe that not knowing is also part of the journey. People often say, "Be strong." But few people say that sometimes real strength is not continuing to force yourself forward. Real strength is daring to say, "I am hurt." Daring to admit, "I do not know what to do." Daring to sit with emotions you used to run from. Daring not to rush to fix yourself just to become more comfortable for others. Daring to accept that you need rest. Daring to let your tears fall without calling them weakness. There is a very quiet form of courage, the courage not to give up on yourself, even when you are no longer sure of anything. The universe, life, or whatever name you give to the force greater than yourself, does not always pull you out of the storm immediately. Sometimes, the miracle is not that the storm disappears. The miracle is that you are still able to stand inside it. You are still breathing. You are still feeling. You have not completely closed your heart. There is still a small part of you whispering, "Maybe this is not over." And that small part is enough. You do not need perfect faith. You do not need complete clarity. You do not need to know the whole path. You only need not to lock your heart completely inside fear. Some things only arrive when you are truly ready to receive them. And sometimes, in order to be ready, you must lose the illusion that you already know everything. You must go through a season where you cannot control anything in order to learn trust. You must go through a season where no one applauds you in order to learn how to stand on your own. You must go through a season of being misunderstood in order to learn not to live through other people's eyes. You must go through a season of feeling lost in order to realize that the real compass is not out there, but inside you. And when that inner compass begins to work again, you no longer need everyone to agree with your path. What you are calling a delay may be preparation. What you are calling loss may be clearing. What you are calling loneliness may be the necessary space for you to hear your own soul again. What you are calling failure may be protection. What you are calling the end may only be the final page of a chapter you tried to stretch for too long. But because you are too close to the pain, you cannot yet see the shape of the blessing. That is okay. Not every lesson needs to be understood at the moment it happens. Some things only become clear after you have walked far enough away from them. One day, you may understand why that door did not open. Why that prayer was not answered the way you wanted. Why that person left. Why that plan fell apart. Why life forced you to stop. Maybe then, you will no longer resent it the way you do now. Maybe you will look back at your old self with gentleness. You will see a version of you that tried their best with what they knew. You will see that the pain did not completely destroy you. It removed the layers that were no longer true. It slowed you down. It deepened you. It taught you to value simple things. It made you someone who can look at others with more compassion. So if today you are hopeless, do not rush to conclude that life is against you. Maybe life is pulling you out of a path that has become too small. Do not rush to believe that silence means nothing is happening. Maybe the most important things are being formed where your eyes cannot yet reach. Do not rush to think you are weak just because you have no strength left. Maybe this is the first time you have stopped using your strength in the wrong way. Do not rush to see your breaking as the final ending. Maybe it is how the old shell cracks so something more alive can be born. You do not need to understand the whole journey today. You do not need to turn your pain into a lesson immediately. You do not need to force yourself to be positive while your heart is still heavy. Just be honest. Just remain. Just breathe one more breath. Just tell yourself, I cannot see the road yet, but I have not disappeared. I do not have the answer yet, but I am still here. I do not know what is coming, but I am willing to let the old leave if it no longer belongs to me. And perhaps that very moment is the turning point. Not loud, not dramatic, not like a movie scene where light suddenly fills the room, but simply a small softening inside you, a quiet end to resistance, an acceptance that you do not have to carry your entire life alone. A fragile opening, but wide enough for something new to enter. That is where hope begins, not as a shout, but as a small flame in the night. Small, but real, and what is real always has the ability to grow. When you are hopeless, it is not proof that you have reached the end of the road. It may be a sign that the old road has completed its purpose. When you have nothing left to cling to, maybe you are being invited to stand on something deeper. When you can no longer control the outcome, maybe you are being taught how to cooperate with a greater flow. When you can no longer pretend to be strong, maybe for the first time, you are becoming truly available for healing. So do not be afraid if today you are standing at the edge of your strength. Some doors only open when your hands stop gripping so tightly. Some answers only arrive when your mind stops screaming. Some miracles only enter when the room inside you is no longer crowded with control, fear, and expectation. Hopelessness is not the place where you are left behind. It may be the place where life bends closest to you. It may be the place where the unseen hand begins to lift you, not in the way you demanded, but in the way your soul truly needs. And if you cannot believe that right now, that is okay. Just keep one small possibility alive, that your story does not end here. That this silence is not the final period. That what is leaving you may be making space for what is more aligned. That the person you are becoming may one day thank this painful season, not because it was easy, but because it brought you back to yourself. When you have nothing left in your hands, you are not empty. You are open. When you no longer know where to go, you are not lost forever. You are being led beyond the old map. When you think you have fallen, maybe you are only kneeling before a deeper beginning. And when you are at your most hopeless, that may be exactly when life begins to do what you could not do for yourself. Remove what no longer belongs to you, preserve the truest part of you, and quietly open a path you were never still enough to see before.